The U.S. Army can learn a lot by how Ukraine is fighting its defensive infantry operations in the east. Russia keeps charging through that same doorway. Ukraine keeps moving the furniture around, and every time Russians step inside, they find out the house is rigged. Frontline reporting keeps describing this same cycle. Russian assault teams, usually 50 to 60 dismounted troops, push into a Ukrainian forward position that looks thinly held. Ukraine shoots, then slips away on purpose. Russians occupy the spot, congratulate themselves, and then the sky starts talking. Mortars, tube artillery, strike drones, loitering munitions. The position gets deleted. What's left of the Russians retreat. Ukraine walks back in, resets the trap, and waits for the next wave of Kremlin-sponsored self-harm. That is rope-a-dope warfare. Muhammad Ali would be proud. Hey friends, Wes O'Donnell here. I'm a former infantry guy, former AWACS guy, and I've watched this war evolve into the most drone-soaked, sensor-heavy punishment factory we've ever seen. And I want to talk about a defensive method that makes U.S. Army infantrymen grin like they've just found out the MRE has jalapeno cheese. And before we get started, let's all recognize that the last couple weeks in U.S. foreign policy has been kind of a whirlwind. So let's take a deep breath, let's center ourselves, grab a Rippets or a sea ration if you're an old-timer. This is Ukraine's rope-a-dope defense. Let's jump in. Here's why it works, why it bleeds Russia dry, and what it teaches every Western army that still thinks hold the line means stand still until the artillery finds you. First, let's zoom out. A lot of people imagine defense as a wall, a line of trenches, a map with thick lines drawn across it, and if the line moves, somebody loses, right? Well, Ukraine's defense looks less like a wall and more like a machine. Russia feeds the machine, and the machine grinds on. This war punishes mass. If you stack bodies, Russia drops artillery. If you stack vehicles, drones find you. If you try to heroically hold a forward trench, the enemy gets to plan around your predictability. Now, Ukraine decided predictability is a luxury item they can't afford, so they built a defense that runs on timing, geometry, triggers, and constant observation. Effects matter more than bodies in the dirt. So the first piece is counterintuitive to people raised on Hollywood war movies. Russian assault elements advance into a forward position that is intentionally lightly held. Ukrainian squads make contact, they fire, they confirm the enemy's size, then they execute a pre-planned displacement. They leave before the fight turns into a close-range meat grinder. That's not panic. That is choreography. The dirt they give up is often not the decisive ground. It is the bait. The decisive event is what happens after Russia steps in and bunches up. Drones turn defense into a live feed. For most of modern military history, defenders struggled to see. Seeing was intermittent, it was delayed, it was foggy, and it was expensive. Ukraine sees all the time. Persistent UAV coverage confirms enemy density and disposition. Once the enemy is fixed in place, the defender can fire with confidence instead of hope. That changes everything. It means Ukraine can let Russians win a position for 10 minutes, then kill them inside it with deliberate registered fires. It means Russian movement is no longer a mystery. It is a visible problem. Now, the kill zone is a deliberately shaped space where the defender wants the attacker to be when the real shooting starts. Ukraine uses obstacle belts, mines, wire, ditches, and concrete to slow and force the Russians into a canal. Those obstacles create decision points. Breach and bunch up, spread out and lose cohesion, try and go around and stumble into the next belt. None of those options stays pleasant when drones are watching overhead. Once Russians occupy the bait positions, Ukrainian units initiate fires along pre-registered reference points. After all, they used to own that spot, so they know exactly where it is. Mortars and tube artillery hit fast. Strike drones and loitering munitions hunt what survives. The position becomes a blender. The core idea is simple. Don't fight the enemy where he wants to fight. Move him into the space where your system is strongest, then apply effects. Okay, the second kill zone, strangling the resupply. This is the part that makes logistics nerds clap like seals. Once you mine a roadway and seed it with concealed drones waiting on the shoulders, you create a second kill zone that is cheaper than a classic ambush and meaner than most people want to admit. The goal is not only to destroy Russian trucks, the goal is isolation. starve the assault element that's now holding that former Ukrainian position, make that captured position unsustainable. Russia's problem is that they keep solving tactical puzzles with bodies. Ukraine keeps solving Russian bodies with systems. In US Army terms, a company commander doesn't defend a line. A company commander develops an engagement area, ties squads and platoons into mutually supporting fires, and uses battle positions, obstacles, and indirect fire as one single package. The phrase that matters is as a system. A good defense has primary positions, alternate positions, sometimes supplementary positions. It has triggers for displacement. It has planned fires that shift as the enemy shifts. It has redundancy because this enemy in Russia does the same thing every time, and you can plan for it. Ukraine's version is harsher and faster. Drones compress the timeline. Observation is constant. Fires arrive very quickly. The logic still tracks perfectly with what competent infantry leaders are taught. Trade space for time. Preserve your people, then kill the enemy when he commits. Ukraine doesn't get sentimental about a little piece of dirt. Ukraine gets sentimental about keeping soldiers alive and making Russia pay for each meter with compound interest. Now, Russia understands the drone layer also, even if Moscow keeps pretending it invented it yesterday. After the first wave occupies, Russia often tries to bolt down the capture by bringing in drone crews and counter-drone teams. The idea is to establish their own observation and start hunting Ukrainian mortar crews and UAV operators in the rear. Ukraine recognizes that move and hits it early. Ukrainian units counterattack to clear those teams out, even when it costs them blood. The alternative is worse. If Russia keeps those drone crews in place, Ukraine loses control of the kill zone. So this becomes a contest over who gets to see and who gets to shoot. Seeing is lethal, denying sight is survival. So, Russia attacks a lightly held Ukrainian position, Ukrainian fires at them to get them to take losses, then it retreats. Russia takes the position and congratulates themselves. Ukraine fires artillery and everything they have into their former position. Then they assault back to eliminate any Russians setting up drone teams or their own loitering munitions launch points. This is why Russian losses stay obscene. Ukraine's casualty reduction comes from refusing to take the first punch in the old way. Ukraine often avoids the worst of the initial artillery and close assault by tactically retreating before decisive contact. Then Ukraine counterpunches with indirect fires and drones, which means fewer Ukrainians have to be exposed to kill Russians. Layer in 4 mechanics and the math turns brutal for Russia. First, dispersion. Small fortified elements reduce the payoff of Russian artillery. Russia can still hit things, it just hits fewer people at once. Next is pre-planned fires. Ukraine is not improvising, it uses known terrain and registered targets, and often knows the exact coordinates because Ukrainians used to live there. Then there's persistent observation. Once you can see the assault, you can time the displacement. Once you can see the occupation, you can time destruction. Once you can see resupply, you can strangle it. Then there's disciplined counterattacks. Ukraine fights to keep control of the kill zone and to deny Russian drones. That is triage done with rifles and FPVs. If you put all of that together, you get the pattern we keep seeing. Russia makes marginal gains on a map, then pays for them with piles of bodies. And morale is not some soft, fuzzy concept here. Morale is physics. If Russian troops believe every advance ends with them getting hunted and placed by drones and artillery, they start moving like men walking toward a funeral. Russia has shifted towards small fire team assaults. Russia does play with ground robots, and on paper that makes sense. Robots can do some suicidal tasks without morale issues. Robots suffer from EW, from range, from terrain, and from the fact that an FPV pilot can treat them like a moving tip jar. Ukraine has a feedback loop. Russia has a bureaucracy and a body count. The Western hold-at-all-cost instincts need an update. The uncomfortable lesson for Western armies is that hold at all costs can become a liability when the enemy can observe you and continuously deliver massed fires quickly. Sometimes the smartest, bravest move is leaving the position, letting the enemy occupy, and then killing him while he congratulates himself. That's not cowardice, that's economy of force. That's preserving trained soldiers while trading disposable dirt for enemy casualties. Now, this is not a drones plus old doctrine. This is doctrine with drones as the central nervous system. These drones provide observation, fire correction, battle damage assessment, and targeting for the resupply strangulation piece. Without the drone layer, rope-a-dope becomes guesswork. With the drone layer, it becomes a repeatable, scalable process. Russia keeps choosing the same door. Ukraine keeps setting the same trap. If the Kremlin has learned anything from this war, it has done a fantastic job of hiding it. So when you hear someone say Ukraine is giving ground, don't picture collapse. Picture bait. Picture a planned displacement, a drone confirming density, a fire plan waiting like a mugger in an alley. This is systems thinking under fire. This is rope-a-dope in the drone age, and it's why Russia keeps paying horrific prices for tiny map changes. Okay, that's it for today, my friends. If you want more tactical breakdowns like this, hit like, subscribe, ring the bell, do all the things so I don't have to keep explaining basic infantry doctrine to a nuclear power that still thinks human wave is a modern innovation. And as always, glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. Crimea is Ukraine.